Dr. Hammer attracted suits. Without one between us, I thought we were both suspects. But Hank said, "Who paid? I don't usually repeat myself." I thought, intimidate someone else. See when they hit you. Bow to your own memo claiming nothing to do with Hammer's money. My sister and I read it to each other twice. Then I admitted I knew we had an account in the hotel's bank. He turned away blank. I wondered if this noble utilitarianism was an affront for a hounded illionaire's last illions. Delusional or otherwise, 92-year-old Dr. Armand Hammer had power over the fear of dying too soon to need extra hidden away, just in case, in cash. That's what having a lot of money is. Still not looking, but as if he heard me think, Hank said, "We're not another stash." But in fact, Dr. Hammer prepared for a much longer life by acquiring a doctor's mistress in his last years. Also noteworthy is his accounted-for personal fortune dwindled substantially by the time he died in December 1990, more than a year after Hammer met Hank, and a full 4 months after our introduction as Sheremetyevo. Hank even said then, "Money just doesn't disappear." Hammer suspected of spreading his own ample share of bribery across the world, that succulent jelly atop heavily buttered toast. There's little doubt the doctor shrewdly bought into the oil bonanza extravaganza through that ages-old formula. Not us. Currently, today, 2013, Dr. Hammer's vehicle, Occidental, remains intact due to investors' self-interest, ending Hammer's reign immediately after he gave up the ghost. Hank stared at the gray restroom wall and said, "Our names are coincidence and his financing is not an option. Our company owes you, so I'm logging this run in the company notebook in my messenger bag." So I said to the wall, "What a treat. Why not cash?" And Hank said, "Funny, money." I said, "My sister and I read your memo. Even hearing you in person is hard to believe." Hank said, "Yeah? Wonder how it'll sound in the dadgum spectacular parking lot." He chose an island in the sun from which to fill his messenger bag with things from the bike box. Flipping the assembled bike upside down to true the wheels, kneeling, looking up, squinting from the glare off a terminal window, he said, "Seriously, man, I know, the maxim is have the means to change the world, but if commerce should reach the bottom, it should exist there too. It's important to prove entrepreneurialism, not have Hammer buy our way in." I thought he'd slept all night on the plane, how he was hyper, piling metaphors as if this was his class. Hank really said, "Here's a stretch, whatever. I want to hear how this sounds. You have a clue who William F. Buckley Jr. is? Well, McHale, he's an American political figure considered a foremost icon of individualist conservatism." Hank sat on the curb. "I see Mr. Buckley as Buddha sits, except his pen nudges his cheek while leaning to his right on his armrest, reciting his mantra. Receiving a job doesn't produce as much as having a job to give." Then his eyes signaled wide. "Aha, that's an ideal. Okay to reach with everyone's feet on the ground." Mr. Greenway didn't seem realistic either. I decided then not to bother him and Bill Hammer anyway. Then after a while, he folded his arms on his knees and eventually said, "As much as I'd love to think here all day, I fit in by moving. Let's go." Then he grunted at the unspoken, asking, "Where's your bike?" I nodded at my father's car, and Hank said, "I ride in the future, not past." I said, "It is automobile." Hank said, "I know I sound like Don Quixote railing at windmills, but if cars had hearts, there'd be extensive train travel too. So you're telling me I don't get to immediately jump on what I've heard is a magnificent subway? So as usual, your luxurious albatross wins? Confound it. I sensed his patience with me was due to his not wanting to know anyone else yet. Not that there wasn't a bonus to sitting on my father's trunk and watching a small show I'd organized by reparking snug next to the driver's side of the unmarked Interior Ministry vehicle. They could have used the front door, but the insult was a reason to be mad and ignore us from the loading zone. Otherwise, they'd have covered us from in front to demonstrate our unimportance. Hank tapped trumpet notes with his fingers on the trunk hood, then grinning said if only the marketplace had something more useful for them. As it is, their sharpness files us down and hurts them only when their consciences come due. Subterfuge jades society, and it doesn't take much. Have you noticed how polite custom becomes people's ruts? In New York, excuse me substitutes for get out of my way.